We are back at Granite City Comic Con, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Colin Mathieson here.
Hello, good afternoon.
And you are the editor of Accent UK.
I'm many hats with Accent UK, writer, editor, artist, co-founder and co-publisher of Accent UK Comics. So many hats.
If you throw Vice in there as well, you can even increase the many. You can have even more.
I like that.
Vice, Junior Vice editor.
Junior Vice, yeah, Dog's Body and everything. I mean, that's the beauty with independent comics. You end up doing many roles. You have to. And you learn as you go along and hopefully get better. Yeah.
I was actually going to ask as well, with you having so many roles and being one of the big parts behind it, because you said you were even the co-founder as well. You work in independent, sort of small press. Is that more difficult than managing so many parts? But then I assume a lot of the people you work with will have a 9-to-5 or will have their job outside of that. So maybe obviously if you're it sounds like it's from the artist panel yesterday, it sounds very much hard enough when if you're a full-time artist alone. How much more difficult is it? Is it like herding cats?
It really is. I mean, there's only two of us, myself and Dave West, based down in Manchester, and it is herding cats. Trying to do things. When we started, we tried to do an anthology book every year, and anyone who will tell you, getting involved in anthology books, everyone's fired up and wants to do it, and you set a deadline for it, and it doesn't always happen. And sometimes the editors and those with power are some of the worst, because you spend so much time chasing and doing other things, you don't get around to doing your own story. But it is difficult. Other things, we've got a WesterNoir ongoing series.
What does WesterNoir look like?
WesterNoir, well, funnily enough, Craig, I'm glad you asked me that. This is issue 1, and Dave West, who I mentioned, is also co-founder of Accent UK. He's the writer of this, or co-writer, with Gary Crutchley.
Of this book, WesterNoir?
WesterNoir, very popular, critically acclaimed.
Critically acclaimed WesterNoir.
Yeah, it's
multiple copies.
This is very true. But this was fired up really with finding the right artist. We mentioned collaborations on the panel yesterday, and Gary Crutchley has a big love for westerns as well. And Dave had the idea of the story of mixing westerns and horror, or noir, of course, which is where the title came from. And Gary sort of really embraced that, and because he embraced it as an artist, he actually managed to make the time somehow to actually do it, work around his 9-to-5 job, and work on it in the evenings. And I think he works 4 days a week, so the Fridays is his art day. And when he's focused like that, he can actually power through the pages fairly quickly. Although he's very studious with them, he sort of does them all in pencil, scans them in on the computer, and then sort of moves them around the page a wee bit, which helps on the time.
It must give you so much more freedom as well, being able to move around like that.
It really does. It's opened up a new dimension for him. So that's, in terms of herding cats, that works very well, because you've got an artist who's passionate about the project. He's actually chases Dave, for the script for the next book, and because he tends to sort of flit around a little bit. 6 issues are out at the moment, and issue 7's almost good to go. And I know he's done some pages for issue 10. They're plotted up to issue 12, I believe. So
he's well ahead of the curve.
He's well ahead, and that's highly unusual. If you do get that in the independent world, an artist who's fired up for a project, then you go with him, in terms of how long it takes, working around the other external factors. The anthology books that we mentioned, we were doing those once a year. We might still do a couple, but the herd and cat syndrome just gets too much. Everyone wants to do it. I mean, although we did a zombies book a few years ago now, and that was kind of a benchmark for us. We'd done about 5 or 6 anthologies before that, all of which were manageable size, maybe about 30 to 40 pages. We mentioned zombies. Just when zombies were just starting to become popular, everyone wanted to come on board. It just grew and grew, and before we knew where we were, we'd got 170 pages. So sort of about 3-4 times our regular size books, and we weren't sure if we could actually print it or afford to print it, and what the cover price would be, and so forth. So we just had to sort of have a cut-off date, and even then, just like any good old zombies, they were still banging on the door, wanting to come in and be part of the book. So eventually, there's a sequel to that. But that that's more tricky because you're heard in dozens of folk, not just in the UK but other parts as well.
And that's kind of the opposite side of the spectrum, because it's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem because it's the opposite. You can never have that perfect balance, can you? It's always a struggle to get it, or it's overwhelming with the amount you can actually get. But the anthologies, you said you've reined them in now to a degree.
Yeah, it's odd that Dave and we started out as both writer-artists, writing and illustrating our own stories, and with moderate success on the small press scene in England where we're both based, and then we sort of got together and we thought, let's try something a bit more. But as we took on all those hats that we mentioned, I took off the hat that said writer and artist, because you're starting getting everybody else involved. And we then had a moment a couple of years ago that we had the opportunity to publish a few other books. We go to lots of shows, including in Europe and Denmark, and we got a chance to publish a few folks, and we've done a couple of books. But we thought, well, do we want to really go for it full pelt, publishing lots of other folks' books? But when you come to shows, it's harder selling books you're not directly involved with.
Yeah. You're less. It's not that you're less invested. You're less personally invested, and you can talk a lot less from experience, which makes it a lot more difficult. It's almost a job of research at that point. It is.
And if you stood behind a table, folk are looking at the books and things. A lot of these pop culture shows, they want to meet the writer and artist, and when you say, "Well, I'm the editor," somehow they're not impressed, or a co-founder actually. And it got Dave and I thinking. We've both got a passion to tell stories still. He's kind of evolved more into a writer, but I've gone back to sort of illustrate my own work again, and we still will publish other folks' books as well, but not to the same extent that we might have done.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing as well. It depends how you spin it. You've got a whole table of books, and you can say, I wrote this one, or you can say, I had a hand in all of these. These wouldn't be here if I didn't do something. Yeah,
but it's still doesn't sound that impressive, because folk want to meet the writer and artist and have a sketch or get it signed and so forth, and that's understandable.
Yeah, you can't sign, as an editor, you can't sign something that's written by someone else to do. No, you should just jump in there and do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I have signed as editor. Bizarrely, folk, were either so desperate or maybe they were impressed by the editor.
He's an editor.
Yeah, wow. Maybe they didn't know what an editor does. It's all good fun. So it's also in the independent world you're limited by your own means, of course, and we're publishing quite a lot at the moment. Actually, we're publishing about 4 or 5 books a year. And that's probably more than we've ever done for a long time. Another reason for that, though, when you're publishing the WesterNoirs, they're smaller, about 40 pages and things, so they're more affordable to get printed. We print a reasonable number of them. When you did the anthologies, say the Zombies was 160 odd pages, and the subsequent ones were through the roof. I think one was about 200 odd pages, and that ties up so much money to get printed. If it's 200 odd pages, you could actually print like 5 smaller issues for that same cost. Yeah. And then you look more prolific because you've got 5 new books out rather than just one a year.
Exactly. So it shows that you're regularly working on things because you're producing more. While obviously you'd still be working the same amount, or even more so probably because of the amount of, like you said, the higher number of people involved. But you would only have the one thing to show for it at the end of the day.
Exactly. And it's nice going to shows with new books. We do a lot of shows now, and some of the shows like Thought Bubble in Leeds, it's really whatever new releases are out, they're the popular ones.
Yeah.
And you get folk literally running to the table and say, well, what's new since last year?
And there's Thought Bubble editions of things as well sometimes.
There is.
Stuff along those sort of lines.
Yeah, we've never really gone in for that sort of variant covers and all that sort of things. It's too difficult to manage, I'll be honest, apart from anything else. It's something else to worry about.
You have another hat as it is. Yeah.
We did once do T-shirts as merchandise, and that didn't really work for us. So we stopped that. I know some guys do lots of merchandise, but it's not for us.
I know it's like you said, it's another thing that's more difficult to spin as well, especially when you try. You've got to kind of focus on what you're working on, especially like you said, if you're working on having a hand across so many different books, and you look at your table, there's so many books there, and obviously they're finished now at this point, or ones are ones that you've found success in, and you're continuing on printing issue 1s because people need a jumping on point, but it's still a large volume that you've had to be involved with at each stage.
It is. Well, you might be surprised to hear that what you see on the table, and we've got, I'm not sure, this weekend we've got about a dozen titles at least, or a dozen books. And that's only about half of what we've ever published.
Mm-hmm.
We've in fact published about 30 different books. There's about 7 or 8 books out of print.
Yeah.
Which is great. Mm-hmm. And it's not really cost effective to go back and reprint. It's better to have something new out.
Exactly. Especially when I saw your table at Dundee a year or two ago, it was a completely different lineup on the table.
Yeah.
Even those issues I saw then, like I said to you, there was a lot of white and black because your anthologies had the white and black covers with bits of red and so on. Like I've already mentioned to you, the Hercules, Trials of Hercules theme anthology.
And 12, yeah.
And you look at it now and it's visually, because it's a different color palette, even like WesterNoir with the sort of red and yellow title and everything. Everything looks. You could straight away tell it's a different lineup.
It is. Well, I won't bore you with the long history of Accent UK, but Dave and I, we started the company. The partnership about 15 years ago, a long time, and there was a third guy called Barry Renshaw involved. Who was, again, very, very popular and prominent in particularly the English small press scene as opposed to the Scottish scene at the time. And the three of us actually started Accent UK together. And Barry had a vision of the covers, so the white covers that you recall were all distinct. We used white as a background colour and black and red to sort of pinpoint things. So the first book we did was Remembrance Days, because we were actually founded on Remembrance Day, November the 11th, 2001 or 2002. I forget which now. And so we did the Remembrance Day anthology, and we had a red poppy on the front with black, it was like a bullet going through it, with a white background, and it was dripping blood and things. But that was quite distinctive. And then the follow-up was Phobias, so they're like pill capsules with those primary colours as well. 2
colours, yeah.
And it really worked. And 12 was an odd one because it was a bit too clever for its own good.
It was a road sign.
Yeah, road sign. If you know your 12 labours of Hercules, when they're clearing out the stables, of all the poo. So we thought, let's use the Men at Work road sign.
Road sign, because it's the same gesture.
And we changed the Man at Work to Hercules. The Greek, the clothes. But it didn't work. Folk thought, you got a book about the highway code? No. It's Hercules. What? 12? No.
You should have stuck with that. You could have got into the informative sort of comics, like the medical awareness comics or the safety comics. You got a manual there.
Mindfulness or something, or educational books. Yeah. And then we were lucky enough to go to comic shows in Copenhagen and Denmark every 2 years. And that 12 book, when it came out, they did not get it at all. It didn't translate well. And one of our friends there said, come with me. And he took us across the road where they were building something, and he showed us the Danish Men at Work site. Nothing at all. So it just lost in translation totally. And then a couple of years after that, Barry Renshaw could no longer get involved with Accent UK. He was running his own little things. He was getting some work with Comics International, the magazine, and so forth. So he stepped out, and then Dave and I carried on just together. And then we met a designer, Andy Bloor, who had contributed as an artist to some of the stories, and he was artist on the Wolfman books. I think you recall seeing.
I got the last one. I got the last copy of one of the Wolfman books, and then Irvin actually
got it.
I was like, that looks really good. I'm going to try and get it. And it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone
to print.
It was going to be a trilogy, but Andy, it was great for him. He had 2 little twin boys, and it takes up your life, of course. So I doubt number 3 is going to happen. But
I thought you meant as in third child there.
Well, there might be a nurse child. I don't know that. But in terms of Wolfman comic, he's moved on to other things. Midnight Man is something he does now. But his day job is a graphic designer. So when we did the Zombies book in 2007, he took us up another level with his design work on the book, and that's when we'd also. Because we'd been on the scene for a few years by then, and we met Steve Bizet at a Danish show in Copenhagen that year, and he did the cover for us and a strip inside, and that really got people's attention and got us distribution to America for the first time, with Diamond Comics.
That's the thing you were mentioning about. You've mentioned a few times about yourself, and obviously there as well, about branching out and beyond just sort of the UK. and you've mentioned to me before that you've been working on a book which is working with a Danish artist.
Yes.
What is that book called? Is it called Troll?
It is called Troll.
It's called Troll.
A nice fancy blue cover here.
And it's available now.
It is available now, and it's absolutely wonderful. We're absolutely delighted to do this. Martin Flink is a talented artist. Dave and I met him our first trip in Copenhagen in 2004. He designed the posters for them, just like Granite City. They themselves put on Denmark's first comic show for about 30 years back in 2004, and we'd met the guys. They came across to, in those days, down in Bristol was the big UK comic show, and they'd come across looking for folk to go to exhibit and so forth, and us being younger and foolish and thought, I've never been to Denmark, let's go. And we had a great time. We didn't sell many books the first time, but we had such a good time, we kept on going back and everything else. And Martin was an artist we'd met there, and he did a few small press comics there, and then on the third trip I think we went there, he sort of said, oh, great to see you guys again. He says, oh, I've finished a book, you might want to have a wee look, I'll show it to you. And I said, well, show it to you. Well, I'll bring it later. And he's very sort of apologetic and shy with it. And eventually we sort of forced it out of him, and he came with this sort of carrier bag with these sort of about 40 black and white paged, photocopied sheets. And I said, oh, right, okay, we'll have a little look. And I just managed to find a quiet corner. I had a wee look through, and oh gosh, I was moved to tears. It was called the Man of Glass, or Glass Madden is Danish for Man of Glass, as Irvin recognises. He's well up in his Danish language. And it's a real subtle story, minimal dialogue, a connection between a young man and an old man, and it's of course a woman connects them, and it's quite a tragic story, but written just through the images with no words. The images got to be so strong to convey emotion, tension, the drama, what's unfolding before you, a story with flashbacks, and it's just so powerful. And I was literally moved to tears, and I gave it to Dave.
You're just in this quiet corner, weeping.
I was, and my mate, Dave said, "Oh, are you okay?" And I said, "Oh, have a look. I've got Martin's book here.
We have to get this artist."
Have a read of this. And Dave had the same reaction to it. He said, "Wow, that was powerful."
That's the same one that's down. You're also selling now.
Yes,
as well,
yeah. Well, yes, it's we're down to just over 100 copies, I think, of that. It did very well, but it's
critically acclaimed.
Very much critically acclaimed, and it was did very well in America as well. So I'm jumping about a wee bit, but with the story itself, it was really powerful, but it was black and white, stark artwork, and we felt, great as it was, it just needed lifting a wee bit. So Martin kindly coloured it for us, which took him a wee while to do, of course. But when it came out, it just fantastic, and it opened a lot of doors, for both us and Martin. We'd gone to a convention in New York, as you do, and the Man of Glass book had just come out a month or two beforehand, and Martin was also across in New York. It was just after all the outcry with the Muhammad cartoons and things, because that originated in Denmark. Our friends weren't directly involved, but they know people that were. And so the Danish government got behind the art community in Denmark and started putting money to show that not all Danish cartoons were bad. So they started sponsoring trips across to New York, comic shows and things. So a whole bunch of Danes came across, and Martin went across, and the Man of Glass sold shed loads.
Well, that's the thing.
Before, like counterpoint, it's always like governments would be more inclined to like shut down things, but to encourage the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, it was and they were amazed that they said, "Oh, don't the UK government pay for you guys to come?" I said, "No."
I think they're very unaware of who we are.
Well, quite. So the Man of Glass was the thing. It was a really powerful, sad story, and we said to Martin, "It'd be lovely to do something a bit more upbeat at some point," and that's where the Troll comes in. The Troll is a much happier story based around his young son in Denmark. Everyone's got a log cabin in the woods, belongs to their family and things, and they have picnics there and wonderful weekends. And one weekend he was there with his family, and his young son Malt, if that's how you pronounce his name, went for a wee walk into the Danish woods and went deeper and deeper into the woods and got lost. And of course they were getting quite worried about him, and he came back eventually late, and he said, "Oh, don't worry about me. I met this creature, this beastie in the forest, and I was scared to start with, but it turned out it was all friendly, and I sung him a little song, and we became friends, and he showed me the way back home, and here I am." And his dad, Martin, was sort of, "Well, are you sure?" I think he was about eight years old at the time, and but his son was so convincing, he thought, well, this must have happened. And obviously Denmark, like a lot of Scandinavian countries, is renowned for trolls. So he based a little, the troll comic book story around it. And it features his son run through the forest. There's a great wee page here, if I can get it. Yeah. Here's his son venturing deeper and deeper into the forest, where he encounters the troll beastie itself, and it's a wonderful story. It's totally wordless, silent. So again, it takes you, a journey through. You can read it different ways. A journey into the woods and meet the beastie, or a journey through a child's imagination, and you can make your own mind up whether it's true or not. And it's a perfect counterpoint we find to the Man of Glass. We say to folk, if you're feeling a bit happy and you don't want to be happy, read the Man of Glass, and whoa. But if you want to be lifted up again, read the Troll, because it's a lovely wee...
It's a counterpoint.
It is, again. And again, it was distributed through Diamond about 6 months ago, last year, and it was very popular. That it's a tough market still for independent comics, everywhere. But the Troll, found an audience. So, and we're working with another book with them at the moment, which I can maybe exclusively reveal is called The Lizard, graphic novel, which hopefully will come out later this year. I hope. If not, it'll come out next year in time for the Copenhagen Festival.
It's a cool thing for that to run, especially just when it's wordless, and it gives it a nice universal appeal. It's like even like with the panel yesterday when you've got to translate into 40 different languages.
Yeah. Because Jim Stewart's mentioned translated different languages, and then when we had John Ferguson here, he spoke a lot about how you convey different types of languages, even within Scotland, having different regions which use different. There's different points where people would speak in different ways, and it's how you even understand the same language. So it's just interesting in that sort of way.
It is. In fact, one of the books that we didn't have room for on the table is Whatever Happened to the World's Fastest Man, which again Dave West has written a few years ago, and that actually won an award, the Eagle Awards, which sadly don't run anymore, but they were given over a period of maybe 20 years. And back in the day, the X-Men used to win the Eagle Awards and put it on the cover. It won the award for Best British Black and White Independent Comic about 3 or 4 years ago, perhaps now, maybe a bit longer. And we got approached by a Brazilian publishing company to produce it and publish it, which they did, and we saw the cover, but the translation was a wee bit odd. It was all Portuguese. They speak in Brazil, and it's Whatever Happened to the World's Fastest Man, and I think it came out as did you know the man that walked fast or something? It didn't quite have the punchiness.
It doesn't roll off the tongue the same, does it?
But
have you seen this guy? He moves really quickly.
Yeah, honest. And the whole thing was, it was kind of a pun because in the story, the chap doesn't run fast at all. It's total opposite. He's got the ability to freeze time. There's been a bomb found, and he's got this dilemma to save himself or save all these strangers, and he does a noble thing, but by helping strangers, he's frozen time, but time carries on for him. So if you're frozen, you're like a statue, but you're still conscious, and people saw a little blur out the corner of their eye, and they thought, oh gosh, they must be running really, really fast, but actually they were really, really slow, and he was walking just normally. So that's where it came from. Very clever.
That's such a clever idea. I don't even know how that would be put across.
No. Well, I'll have to bring some next time on the table here, because I don't think it's been to Aberdeen yet. It's not got many copies of that left either.
But we'll only accept the Brazilian edition.
Well, yeah. Well, if you want the full Brazilian, try your Portuguese language skills next time.
As being an editor, you've mentioned yourself, you're dabbling back into writing, but it must be very hard to actually write yourself when you're obviously having to supervise other people's writing as it comes in and edit that and go through that whole process. Yeah,
it's juggling things, but it's just scheduling. We found last year we published a lot of books that other folk were involved with. This year we're concentrating more on our own stories. Dave and Gary, the artists in WesterNoir, they're carrying on with those. And for myself, I've just published this one, which is Moments of Adventure, just launched in Aberdeen this weekend, which is a personal triumph for me because I've not published anything for years in my own right, and I really wanted to do something more or less in my hometown. and this is a short collection of adventure stories. I grew up with DC Thompson, so my first love is those old sort of short, snappy 4 or 5 page stories. So that's kind of what I've done in my own right. And it's been a real thrill to do this again, but to make it sort of stand out again, because my own artwork, I'm happy enough with it, but it helps to be coloured. I mentioned, like with Martin Flink, adding colour to a book really sort of lifts it.
Adds the depth to it.
It does. And because I like to do things global, as you're discovering, I'll be working with 2 colourists, one local to me in Lancaster, a guy called Matthew Sof, and another guy in Serbia, Aljosa Tomic, and just a guy I deal with on the internet, and it's in this day and age you can work with anyone all around the world. Exactly.
With the internet, it doesn't matter if they're in the same room or if they're across. Obviously the conversation's a bit different, a bit more staggered sometimes,
stilted. But it's a real delight, if you mentioned 9 to 5s and things, if you're working and stuff and you come home and you log on your emails and you just ping, you get a new page of artwork. It's just fantastic seeing that, a real thrill. It always has been with the comics.
I think that's a good point then for us to stop there. You managed to cover a lot of it. Is there anything else you've got coming up though that you'd like to talk about?
Coming up, forthcoming. I know. Well, the WesterNoir book. The WesterNoir book has done really well for us, but with Diamond distribution, it's still a wee bit up and down, and they weren't quite so keen to carry it as an ongoing series, just because the knock-off in orders after issue 1 and so forth. So the first 4 issues, which is the first story arc or the first season, as we've been calling it, they're going to be collected in a trade paperback, which we're hoping to be finalised in time for Thought Bubble in November this year.
It's early November this year as well.
It is, yeah. It's on Bonfire Night, I think, which is...
it's the first weekend rather than halfway through.
It is, yeah. So that being the case, we're hoping to have it into previews and Diamond, roughly about 3 months before that, which I can't work out what that is, about July or August. So probably
don't work out, it'll just get more stressed.
Yeah, so probably as we speak, Dave, the writer, has done his bit, and I know Gary, the artist, is doing his best to finish a bonus story to go in the trade paperback, which he's probably working on at the moment. So that's probably the biggest thing we've got coming out in the very near future. There's other things being spoken about, but I'll keep quiet about those for the moment.
Don't put everything on the table.
And the folk who want to find us, you can find us through the links, I'm sure, with Granite City, but also on the website accentuk.com, and you'll follow us on Facebook and Twitter and the usual places.
That's perfect. Right, I'll wipe my hand before I shake it. It will be sweaty.
Thank you very much, Craig.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you, guys.